attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, THINQ Golf members. Thanks for joining us for this month's webinar. My name is Tim Suzer, and I'm once again joined by Dr. Debbie Cruz. This month we have an open forum for you. So what does that mean? What are we going to do for the next hour? For the next hour, you can ask as many questions as you'd like on the mental game. Thank you for all of you that have already submitted some of these questions. We have a portal of questions here that we're going to address, but please keep the questions coming. We got an hour, and we'll try to get through as many as we possibly can. For those that have not been on one of our webinars, a little bit about our presenter, Dr. Debbie Cruz. She's an LPGA Master Professional, scientist, a researcher, author, and a sports psychology consultant. She serves on the National Education and Research Board for the LPGA. She was voted top 50 female golf instructor by Golf Digest, awarded Best in Science and Golf Award from Golf Magazine, and published several times in golf publications, Golf Magazine, Golf Digest, Newsweek, Wall Street Journal. She's also the chair of the World Scientific Congress of Golf and editor of the IJGS. A little on my background, I've been a PGA member for 18 years. I've worked with players at all levels, including PGA and LPGA members. I've been working with Debbie for several years now, and she has a wealth of information to share with all of us. Before we get started, I just want to make you aware of a couple features. Again, a lot of you have submitted a question, but you can also, if you want to ask a question, you can chat it in, or you can click on the hand icon in your GoToWebinar, and we will unmute you and take that question. Just an FYI, your questions to the panel cannot be seen by the other attendees. So without further ado, Dr. Debbie Cruz. Thanks, Debbie.
Thanks, Tim, and thanks to all of you for being a part of the webinar today. It's really a nice day here in Phoenix, and I'm not sure where all of you are at, but weather is good here, so we can enjoy it.
I think we might even hit 90 today.
I think it was close. Yeah, it's getting a little warm again, but it is a different forum, and I'm kind of excited about that because we get to talk about whatever you want to talk about. So I really encourage, and actually we might even be able to have a discussion. So I really encourage you to ask those questions. We've got a couple that were sent in ahead of time, and we'll start with those. But we'd be very happy to address the issues that come up for each and every one of you.
Well, let's start with a couple of the questions that came through that were emailed in to us. How does a golfer shake off a bad shot? What is the best method for refocusing after such a shot? I guess we would kind of refer to this as our post-shot routine.
Yes. Let's see. I think that one of the important things is after a shot that we don't particularly care for is really to be honest with yourself first. And, you know, I mean, you make those statements, it's okay, we've got a lot of holes left. That's fine if, once again, your subconscious and conscious agree, your coach and team are on the same page with that, and you kind of go on. But I suspect that's not the question you're really asking. It's the one that can kind of take you 6 feet under when you hit that shot that's so frustrating and you drop in that 6-foot hole. And But being honest with yourself is the fact that you didn't really care for that shot is just fine. It gets it out on the table, and as soon as you have the cards on the table, you can deal with them. So every shot has 2 pieces to it easily. One is information and the other is emotion. And we want to gather the information. For example, on a shot that didn't go well, the first thing I want to know, was it the decision that was off, or was it simply the motion? I would hit the same shot again if I was faced with it. And sometimes we actually are faced with it. But at any rate, we want to know whether it's the decision or the motion. Once we know that it's the decision or motion, we can take a step forward from there so we don't do it again. We either hit a different shot, or we make sure we focus accordingly through the shot in order to be able to get the outcome that we would like. So those are a couple of things about dealing with that shot. Really deciding information versus emotion, what it is. We didn't really address the emotion side of it. The emotion is a release. It's really important we look at it that way. You are releasing the bad shot. You're not owning the bad shot. That's not like me. I don't know where that came from, but it is a matter of getting it out of you so we don't carry that emotion with us for the next 3 shots. Now the other issue, what's best to refocus, part of it depends on how much time you have. If you missed a putt and it's your turn, you've got to step up and putt the next one because everybody else is in the hole. You don't have a lot of time. So in that case, you're immediately pretty much going to go into, you breathe, release that shot that you just hit, but immediately you're going to go into, okay, so what's next? Okay, so what am I going to do about it? And if the goal is to get that next shot in the hole, which I'm sure it is, you do everything you know to do possible to get it in the hole. You go behind the ball, you do your routine. Even if it's a short putt left, maybe you only have a 3 or 4 footer, but you're going to do everything you know to do to get that very next shot in the hole, and with a strong intention of rolling it in. Because you missed the last one or didn't putt it well doesn't mean that this one's going to be the same by any means. So if you have more time, okay, then you've got more options, of course. The post-shot routine is the one that comes in here and probably helps the most. And the post-shot routine, once again, is just 3 things. It's release, we just talked about that. It's information, what'd you learn from it? Okay, the greens are a little faster than I thought. And the last piece is it's done. And it must be done. If you're in the fairway, we start with 10 steps. You get 10 steps to get it done. And then that's it. You're off in your mind to shopping tonight or what you're going to eat for dinner or whatever it happens to be that will keep you in a neutral to positive space. If it's on the green and you don't have a lot of time, it's release that putt. It's what information, they're faster than I thought. It's done, and roll this ball in the hole. Just kind of my comments, because I pay attention to words a lot. I wouldn't use refocusing because is going backwards, and I like to just go forward. So my preference would be that we're going to focus on what needs to be done for the next shot. So it's always about going forwards, and especially what we want to do is leave behind that bad shot that we don't want to carry with us.
That's great. I really like the 10-step rule. You get 10 steps, and pretty much you're on to, actually you can go neutral until you're ready for your next shot, which actually, we did have a question that came in, and I'll just read this.
Tim, I forgot one piece. Those 10 steps, we're going to work back to the place that when you drop that club back in the bag, it's over with. But we'll give you 10 steps to start, then you can reduce it to 5, and then eventually the club goes in the bag and it's over. We're on to a different piece of the puzzle.
And we do have the post-shot routine in our intention game.
Yes.
If you haven't had an opportunity to play the intention game, you do have an option on what it is you want to do with that shot. You can anchor that shot, you can discard that shot, or you can neutralize that shot. You can put it in your golf bag, you can anchor it, or you can just dispose of it, and that's kind of the same concept.
Right, and I'm glad you brought up the intention game because it really takes you through a shot. It starts with the decision-making, high risk, medium risk, low risk. Then you perform the task in the middle, and then you discard it or keep it or anchor it at the end. And I've just been completing some of the performance testing on the intention game, and with some pretty good results from 26 people. We had 14 experimentals and 12 controls, and we were putting 12-foot putts, and we saw 24% reduction in error distance from the hole among the experimentals after they played 10 minutes of intention compared to the controls that really showed 0 change, 33 centimeters versus 33 centimeters, which is unusual to find in the research. But in terms of putts made, they had a 46% increase in putts made after the intention game compared to a 15% increase in the controls. And once again, those controls are there for practice effects. Most people are going to be going up if they putt enough putts. So, but that's a pretty interesting result. So the intention game must be doing something with their intention and focus of attention.
Yeah, that's remarkable. Those results are really exciting. Question, rather than getting too caught up in any particular the game or tournament, my biggest problem on the course is that my mind will sometimes wander. could be the next day at work, next home repair project, etc. Do you have any suggestions on how I could try to regain my focus, which would probably be key for me to improve my play and scores? And I think working players that I've worked with, I think they believe that they have to be focused for 4 hours straight. They're like, okay, I'm on the golf course, I got to focus. It's okay to let your mind after a shot go somewhere else. It's the 20 seconds before the shot, and in this case, the up to 10 steps after until I put my club back in the bag. That's when you really have to have your focus. You're not going to keep your focus for, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't try to stay as a professional golfer, I don't try to stay in a certain mindset for 4.5 hours. It's too draining on the body.
Yeah, Tim, that's right. As long as where you go in between those shots is in a neutral to positive space for yourself, that'll be just fine. The thing is, players usually figure out how many steps ahead or how much time ahead they require to get back into the shot. So there's a routine, a preparation routine even before the pre-shot routine. And if you're walking out there on the golf course, it might be 50 yards or 25 yards or 10 yards. People are all different in how much time it takes them to refocus. But it's important to cut off the conversation if you're doing that, or you're thinking about jobs or whatever else, as long as it's not a negative place, and zero back in and start looking at the shot in front of you. If you're in a cart, it's different. That's one of the things that makes riding in a cart hard. And it's like, okay, when it's your turn and, if you can get out of that cart, sometimes you even kind of take the long way around to get to your ball so that you have that time that's important for you to get yourself in a state of mind, like you're saying, Tim, to be able to hit the shot. And so we'll have players write down ahead of time what things they get to think about on the course that are non-golf related, so that they have things, and it, instead of being an empty can up there that anything can come in, all the stuff from work, all the stuff from home, all the to-do list we didn't do. So I think it'll be important to be aware of what those things are and maybe plan them ahead of time.
Okay, great. Let's get to our next question that came through. Does a pre-shot routine have to remain consistent for all types of shots? I get this one a lot. That is from my driver to my putter. Should I have the exact same shot routine? I was working with a player last weekend, a mini tour player, and we were talking about just this. And one of the things I was doing with my iPhone is I was timing his shot routine. And putting is going to be different for him. Putting was different than hitting a driver. And he was trying to get it consistent, and we had this conversation. So I'm really looking forward to your answer on this because I just experienced this last weekend.
It is a good question, and I would guess it's probably a little bit skill level related, but the answer is no. It does not have to be the same for all shots. The goal of the routine is to get you in the state of mind that's going to allow you to hit the shot. And we may have a different attitude or approach to our driver, and I certainly see people have different approaches to their putting. And so what's important is to find the things that help you get in the state of mind for that particular shot. So what I'll do lots of times is, and you can do it with your players, or if you're playing, you do it with yourself. You kind of go through, when you hit that putt the best, what did you do to get ready? And I'm watching this all the time. When you hit that chip shot or pitch shot the best, what did you do? And you can take your best shot in the bag, maybe it's your driver, maybe it's a wedge, and figure out what routine you use with that one. And that one's probably a pretty good indication of the items that are going to work, the variables that are going to work in your other routines. If you take the club in your bag that's maybe your least favorite, or one that's giving you a challenge at a certain time, I would guess that routine's different. So if you take your best shot routine and apply it to that club, I could pretty much guarantee will make a difference. Now, the other thing that I have watched, though, is over time, many of the higher skilled players, their routines become more similar. Because when you think about it, what we're doing is creating a state of mind. So if I go through the same things, I'm probably going to create a pretty similar state of mind, but it depends on where I start from. You know, if every time I grab my driver and get up to the shot, I'm in a good state of mind, it's not going to require too much out of that routine. But you get on the chipping area, and I have a different attitude about my chipping, and my guess is that routine might change a little bit. So use your own play as a guide. You know, when you're performing well, see if you can figure out exactly what you're doing. The steps are one piece, and where your mind is at is the other piece. Every item in your routine, every look, every way, it all serves a purpose. If it doesn't serve a purpose, it'll become a distraction, and you want to get it out of there. So by going through yourself and defining what every piece does for you, it'll really help you create the optimal state of mind.
Yeah, I think with, for instance, for putting, something that could be more routine, like a 10 or 12-foot putt, would seem like that would be easier to duplicate or be consistent. But if you have a short game shot where you need to get up and down with a pitch shot and you're on an uneven lie, the turf is different, you're trying to figure out how to use the bounce, and you see this with tour players on the weekend. You know, they're sometimes over these shorter shots longer because they're trying to get acclimated. But a lot of times they get acclimated with like a side hill lie, they'll feel the turf, then they'll back off of it, and then they'll commit to their shot routine. And so that's a little bit different of a scenario, but I think they've got to get to that comfort zone to give them that freedom, like, okay, I own this, I got the feel for it now, and then they go back through. Where putting seems like that's something that could be a little bit more consistent, unless it's like a 50 or 60-foot putt. Same thing, the routine takes a little bit longer because they're really trying to feel the distance. So, yeah, that's great, because I can't imagine that being consistent for every shot in the bag.
Well, it's an excellent point you're making, Tim, and the thing is, there's the preparation routine and the putting or the pre-shot routine. Preparation routine, like you've got a downhill challenging lie, you take as much time. It requires more preparation for a more challenging shot, but you don't want to be taking more time over the shot. So that's where you go into preparation and do all those assessments you were doing, all those swings. You can do as many as you like, pretty much, you know, to figure things out. And then you go into your pre-shot routine. That's pretty much going to be the same for that shot.
Okay. We had a question come through intermittently here before I get to the next one that came via email. When I was a young golfer, approximately 10 years old, I never really knew anything about the mental game. Out of sight, out of mind sort of thing. Now that I'm older, I feel the game is almost all mental compared to physical. I spend my time on the course overanalyzing scores, etc., as opposed to focusing on the task at hand. Do you know what might have changed in my brain as I aged?
Very good question. You are exactly right. The brain is very different at the age of 10. You are more right-sided by nature. As children, we are right-sided and versus left. You have more alpha going on. Your peak frequency is going to be about 10 point something hertz. And so you're in a natural learning state. You don't have really the hardware yet to go through and overanalyze or even analyze much of what's going on. I almost feel like the kids are protected. They can go out there and look at the shot and swing, and yes, they don't see the trouble, and they don't run into they don't even see the tree in front of them they could run into. But I feel it's a protection, so they can swing, and they can learn to swing and get the ball in the hole. And we do go through a process. You're exactly right. When we get up to about 15, things are changing in the brain such that we now have the ability to be more analytical. We become more left-sided as we age. We have more beta activity or processing ability going on. And we've got to kind of figure out how to use all that. The thing I see now, let's say 15 to 18, the kids are getting into analyzing their swings. They learn their swings better at that time. They can do something about them on their own. But a lot of players get stuck there, and it's not fun for them anymore. And so what we want to do is help them organize that information. Their ability to really think through and analyze things takes place behind the ball and get everything ready, just like we were talking about a minute ago, so that over the ball they can be assertive, aggressive, let it rip, without fear like they did when they were 10 years old. So if we get all the work done ahead of time, we're doing that to allow us to be able to really swing it freely over the ball. And if you just understanding that, I'm so glad you asked the question, because just understanding that helps us figure out how to organize information and processing in the brain so we can play like we'd like to play.
Yeah, I mean, to reflect back at it now that I've spent so much time with Debbie and another THINQ team member, Dr. Joe, to reflect back on, I taught a lot of junior golf at my golf academies over the years, and I always saw this transition from high school to college, and it was interesting to see, you know, when I worked with, was fortunate to work with Debbie at ASU with the men's and women's team, and they get this, when they get to about that age. I just had this conversation with a gentleman just graduated from a Division I school, and he was a senior, and he didn't really appreciate the mental game until his senior year, and now he's looking at turning professional. But it could happen at the age of 19, 20, 21. But it's just like the juniors. You think about how invincible there's no fear. They're invincible in anything they do. If they're out there, they could be climbing trees or riding bikes, or they don't fear getting injured. And it's the same thing in golf. They just play fearless golf. And I know I think my best golf, is from a focus standpoint, was when I was a junior. But I didn't realize back then, of course, that the performance of an athlete, they're performing at the highest level when they're an alpha. So you kind of went over that pretty quick, but left again for everybody is that's a little bit more analytical, right's creative, but then we're talking about these juniors are in a more of a different wave pattern, is alpha versus they get into high beta, and then there's different degrees of beta. So you could be extremely analytical and really could, and then you go to college and you think, okay, I got to get better because I want to make the traveling team. So what do? You start analyzing, and then there's technology available, and there are teaching pros available, and you have all these tools available to you, and then you have the school and the analytics. And it's just, people always ask that question, what happened to that kid's game when he was a junior golfer and he was #1 in the state or #1 junior and he got to college, and what happened to his game? And it can really be, this can answer a lot of that. So that was a great question. Thanks for that. I know that was kind of a long-winded answer, but it was an important question, so thank you for that. Okay. Next, during my round, I feel like I have a bubble over my head that shows how many over or under par I may be. How do I get away from focusing on score so the round can simply happen? So now I guess we're back to staying in the present and not judging so far ahead.
Not yet. That's a loaded question. So your goal or your intention is to get away from score so the round can simply happen. And what I think I'm hearing you say is you don't want the need to score to be running your game. You want it to simply happen. It will unfold, and it will unfold the way it's going to unfold, but I also want you to be in there a little bit more in terms of asking for everything you want, getting yourself ready the best you can, have the courage to swing the club and let it rip, and then take what comes. So that would be my explanation of letting it simply happen, because I see players lots of times they go the other direction and they are in this take what comes mode, and that one doesn't work either. Okay, there's something in the middle that works more. You remember that the level of frustration will equal the level of expectation. So if that bubble that's chasing you around that golf course is tons of expectation, it's going to make you crazy. I'll agree. I'd be popping those bubbles right and left. But score is not a bad thing. Score is what would you like to do. You're suggesting that it's telling me over and over again where I'm at, how I'm doing, its judgment, its evaluation, etc. Score can motivate us as long as we're very clear about how we're going to attain it. So when you have an idea of what you'd like to do and that bubble keeps chasing you in terms of score, it's like, okay, so what are you going to do about it? It's reminding you, what is your intention here? What's next? What's your focus? How are you going to get that ball from here to there? And that's what I'd really like to have us, use score for. We're going to use score to help us stay on track, make a clear decision about what it is I'm going to do to get this ball in the hole. It might not be the typical way everybody else does it. The score is an interesting one, and I want to suggest that you really want to be somewhere in the middle, and you don't want to fight those scores. You're talking the outside world versus the inside world, but you can't get totally complacent too and simply wait for the good stuff to happen. You're in there planning, preparing, doing the best you know to do, and whatever comes, and you're going to go hit the next one, and you do the same process again.
Great. Yeah, I think there's some interesting scenarios here where you've experienced this with score, and a lot of times if you're playing in a scramble tournament or a best ball and you're not so, because we have a handicap, and this is the challenge with the handicap, is it puts a label on us and it takes us out. So if I'm an 8 handicap and I'm shooting 80 on the front 9, or I average around 80 in the front 9, I put up a 32 and I'm 4 under. The brain, and you consider, let's just say you're in the zone. You feel like you're in the zone, and you're like, boy, okay, I'm here. The minute that you go to, okay, I'm 4 under, and I usually shoot 80, you've taken yourself out of the present, and you're starting to focus on, either you could go to the future, you're in the clubhouse signing your scorecard, you think you're going to shoot 65. That's the thing that people, once you get in it, and you're in that zone, people easily go, oh, it's over. And what happened is, how did it become over? You made it over when you went in the past or the future. So staying in the present is following these simple skills like defining your intention and then keeping your focus and your attention. But it's just interesting, like with a best ball tournament or scramble, I just think of some of these times I played in this, and all of a sudden you look back and you reflect on how many under you might have been on your own ball because you weren't thinking about score. You were thinking more of a team score, and if you go back and you really look at it, it's like you were responsible maybe for really one of your best rounds. So I just, sometimes if, and I think one thing that, Debbie, you shared with me a couple of years back was taking it off in bite-sized chunks, like either a 3-hole score or a 1-hole score, because how many people shoot the opposite 9s where they go 50-40 or they go 40-30? So what is that? That's back to that kind of that synchronous state of trying to stay consistent, which it certainly isn't easy. That's the comfort zone.
Yes.
So, okay. No. Next question, and please keep the questions coming. These are great questions, and it takes, as I'm sure we're talking and open this up, you've had a lot of experiences. If it's anything from pre-round on the golf course, what do I do to warm up? How do I handle first tee jitters? Anything on, what do I do after my round? If it's, do I journal? I mean, please just kind of open up your mind and think of any experiences that you've had and share them with us because they help everybody. Question. Sometimes I feel like things never go my way on the golf course. How do I mentally handle bad breaks or unfortunate lies?
This is really parking lot issue to start with, and I think we sometimes have in our mind in the parking lot that things are supposed to go a certain way out there for us. It's a beautiful course, they groom it so nicely. If I hit a good shot, it's supposed to be in a good lie. All of these ideals that we have in our mind about the game, and then if we have those ideals in the parking lot, when we get out there and it doesn't actually go that way, we get pretty discouraged or frustrated or whatever. So the first step is to change the parking lot because it isn't correct, actually. We don't know. We can hit great shots all day long. The one thing I make sure to work on players with is if I have a bad bounce or I have an unfair lie or something goes off, the very next thing you do is look for the shot that the course gave you one back. Okay, so maybe I kind of missed that 7-iron coming up to the green, but somehow it took a good bounce and it ended up 15 feet from the pin, but I didn't really hit it that good. So the course maybe took 1 or 2 away, but immediately start looking for the ones it's going to give back to you, because it is, but we don't notice those very much. So that is the focus after you have, let's say, the first, what you might call bad break on the golf course. The other thing is, in that parking lot, they design those golf courses to give you a hassle. To me, yes, they're groomed very well in many places, but I mean, they have a lot of fun doing that and making it challenging for you, and making it look like those greens are going one way when they're actually going another. So you're going out there to meet the challenge of the day, and it always works in balance. So just like we were talking about scoring, you know, if it's not going your way on this shot or on this hole, I'd start looking for the other way. But this question is good because I had a player one time. This player had shot 259s and a 58, and the only thing he could think of going out at this point in time was that everything was going against him, and there were terrible breaks, and he got all of them. And when you've shot those low scores, it is a challenge to go back out and shoot over par when you know you can shoot those scores. So my thinking is, what purpose was it serving for him? Well, the bad breaks and those types of things were serving a purpose that he didn't have to shoot 58 and 59 every time he went out. He had a reason for it, so I think he could manage to get himself back out on the golf course. So we'll go back to that one statement, too, again. Just remember, anything you see that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, like maybe a day with bad breaks, you know, what purpose is it serving? Is it saying focus your attention? Is it saying get back in balance? Is it saying look for the good that's coming your way? It's always interesting.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see where you focus, you know, how positive, like you said. I mean, if you really look back at it and all your shots, it all balances out. If you get a bad, I mean, if you end in a divot and all of a sudden you make a 50-foot putt, people just, you have to put your energy on what went positive. And so a lot of times after a round, I'll tell my players, they want to come off and tell me what they did poorly, and I'm always like, well, what did you do really well? And it's not that you want to sweep under what you did poor, but at least just puts it in perspective. And I remember, Debbie, one time you sharing with me, again years ago, that we were talking about fairways and greens, and some of the best rounds that are played, you know, it's like we kind of picture in our mind, okay, we got to hit this fairway, we got to hit this green. The best rounds ever played are just not fairways and greens. A lot of times, if you take a really advanced player, like I was on the tour working tour players, you put them in the fairway all the time. I remember having this conversation with you. They're not always comfortable there. They need to, you know, believe it or not, they need to create. They need to. The more they go in the rough or behind a tree, it keeps that creation. If you put them in the middle of the fairway, you know, 150 yards out for 18 holes, you just, okay, they're gonna play well, but it doesn't always work that way, correct?
That is exactly right. I did have a tour player, and she was used to coming from everywhere but the fairway, and she got a great swing coach that straightened her out, and she could not score for anything going down the middle of the fairway and hitting greens because it wasn't her image. And so that fun and creation, we had to challenge her system other ways, because now it was coming from the middle of the fairway, but she could still create and challenge herself to get that ball in even closer to the hole, and that's what purpose it served.
See, that's why I don't hit that many fairways. Okay, we had a question that kind of reflected back on one of our first questions that just came through. You stressed earlier the idea of sticking to a pre-shot routine, but also mentioned modifying over the time. 10 steps to 5 steps and so on. How should I figure out where to start?
If you can go back to reviewing what you did on some great shots, your answers are usually in those great shots. How much ahead of time did you get ready there? You know, routines are interesting. You know, we think we got to do this many balls in this order to, you know, to get ready for that tournament, and then sometimes we're short on time and we just, you know, we don't get to do our normal routine and we just play it really well. Well, your answers are usually in your own game. And then the next piece is go out and test it. So, you know, you use your 10 steps on this hole. Every shot, get yourself focused in, you know, those last 10 yards or whatever, and see how you perform. The next hole, give yourself 25 yards and see if it's any better, or it might be worse. It's like spending more time than you have when you have to wait for the other people to hit their shot, and then you blow it because you spent too much time thinking about it. So anything that you question, you test. You can do it on the golf course hole by hole, or you can do it on well, this one's a little harder on the range, but test it out for yourself.
Yeah, and I think when I commented that, I hope I didn't confuse the issue, I was just talking about different types of shots. Like for me, my putting shot it might be pretty consistent, within a certain amount of look at the hole or a certain amount of seconds. But, a short game shot or a driver could be a little bit, like driver, don't take a practice swing. Iron, don't take a practice swing. Short game, do. So but I think that's great advice. It's always interesting. It's almost like doing a video presentation and watching your presentation to improve your presentation skills. I mean, if you have the ability, maybe sometimes you're not aware what it is that you do really well when you hit a great shot. But maybe your coach records that and goes, "This is a routine that seems to be working for you." And after a while, you find out, "Boy, I play better when I go quicker." Because if you go slow, maybe there's more self-chatter. Maybe you're kind of going left and right brain and you're thinking too much. It seems to me the patterns have been the quicker the shot routines. I shouldn't say you don't want to put every label on everybody. You get someone like an Aaron Badley that goes really quick with his putting routine. And I think it's because he gets a look, he gets an image, he has a commitment level there that is quicker. So experiment a little bit with time and practice swing. And you could do it behind the ball and take a practice swing. You can do it next to the ball, and you'll get a feel. You'll know, intuition, you'll know exactly what's working well for you because the ball will always tell you. Question that we had that wasn't really on any of these topics, but just a random one. Do you have a recommendation as when we play THINQ games? Do we do them before a round, on the first tee? On the first tee, that'd be an interesting one.
That'd be an interesting one.
Hold on a second. My shot routine, I got to play this game before I tee off. And at home or all of the above? So that's a good question. I mean, what...
It is great. The reason we've been testing the 10-minute interventions is for the purpose of warm-up, and we've been seeing some nice results. As you go to the course, if you have X amount of time, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, how much time do you spend, putting, hitting for balls? And if you would spend even 5 minutes on the games, 10 minutes, we're seeing some nice results. But even 5 minutes to play the game gets yourself focused, because in the lab, when we're testing, I see it's often those first 10 balls right when they come off of the game that they just do very well on. So I think it serves a purpose for warm-up, but then I also think at home it serves a purpose for developing the skill. For example, attention. If you play that and play holes for a period of time, more than 10 minutes, let's say you're playing 20 minutes, you're working on your focus of attention as well as sustaining attention, so that you can do it over longer periods of time. You're training yourself in the skill more so. Synchronicity. It's actually working to train the skill in your system. More and more practice with that particular component, just like on the range when you practice your chip shots and your pitch shots. So you're developing the skill at home, and you're using it as a great warm-up, just like you do when you go to the golf course to get ready to tee off.
Yeah, just experience I've had from members and students is different games help them differently. Like I have players that like to do the THINQ game before they tee off. I had a mini tour player that really liked to just do the awareness because it's kind of addressing more your weakness. I mean, the awareness one to me makes a lot of sense because so many people get internal and they think about swing thoughts, and when you start reflecting on the awareness game and you're always thinking externally about the flag and you're starting to have an awareness about, because that's the first key to performance. You get out there, you want to, okay, what does my wind look like? What's the location of the flag? Where's it at? And then you have obviously other variables with lie and things like that. So it might be different for everybody, and that's just been my experience that one is going to resonate with you that's probably going to get your mind in a place to where you feel like it's again the intuition. You'll have a comfort level when you tee off. So experiment a little bit with them. Okay. Next question. Can you review the 3-2-1-1 putting game? So there's probably a lot of people on this webinar that aren't familiar with that. So yeah, if you could cover that from the beginning.
That's a great game, and I use it. I started using it, made it up for the players that have trouble seeing the ball go past the hole, and they get this terrible feeling because they don't know how far it's going to go, and so they tend to leave them short. they tend to leave them short or low side. So what we want to do with this game is train the subconscious that no, we want them past the hole, and we really want them past the hole on the high side. And so we have to reward that behavior. We have to, if we want to keep it going, and convince the subconscious that this is where we want to be, because it's the one, that would rather be short and careful. So the way the game goes is you take one ball and you play around different hole to hole. Let's say there's 6 holes on the practice putting green. So your maximum score possible would be 18. You putt the ball, maybe the first one's a 20-footer. So if you pass the hole, I should say even or pass the hole on the high side, you get 2 points. If you make the putt coming back, you get another point. That's 3. If you put it in the hole, you get 3. So on every single hole, you've got 2 chances to get 3 points. Okay, if you pass the hole on the low side, equal or past the hole, you get plus 1 point. If you make the putt coming back, it's another point, so that's 2. If you are short, it is -1, and you do not get to putt anymore. You must pick up the ball. So what we're doing is we're taking away if you leave it short. You've got to get them to or past the hole. The only exception to that is if you've got that huge downhill slider coming back that's just about impossible. But otherwise, every putt that's equal or past the hole, I'd rather be that much long than short, is an accurate statement, because you gave the first ball the very best chance of getting in. And we want to be on the high side. The ball's moving towards the hole. On the low side, it's moving away. It's going to pick up momentum from the break, and it usually ends up farther from the hole than the high side putt. And you can test that by just going on a really big breaking putt. But I also want to say that you can use this for chipping and pitching as well. We do it all the time with the team to help them get their chips up there, because a lot more chips can go in the hole also.
Yeah, that's a great game. Let's get to our next question. More kind of a nutrition question.
Mm-hmm.
As far as attention goes when I'm playing golf, I find that it's important, of course, to keep hydrated, but I also need to snack during the round. I usually have a combination of nuts, raisins, some candy, but I would prefer not to eat so much, especially the candy. Do you have any suggestions for snacks, particular things that won't melt when it's hot?
You could probably answer this one, Tim. You can do carrots. You can do a lot of players, the orange pieces, although they're not so easy to eat. Bananas, etc., if they don't get smashed in your bag. But the thing is, and I've had players call, do I have to eat a whole bar? It is hard to eat out there lots of times. I mean, you're focused on what you're doing, and you're not hungry right now, and you don't feel like eating. But I can't tell you how many times coming down the stretch those last 3 holes, and if we see scores go higher on those last 3 holes, our first question is, what'd you eat? So one thing is, you're even though you may not be hungry or you're thirsty at the time, you're eating for later in the round, and so that might help. And it doesn't have to be that you eat a whole bar. You can eat half a bar, and probably candy isn't the best one, but it's part of training to me. It's part of stacking the deck. It's part of keeping yourself in the optimal space I can do, and these are the little things we can do to help ourselves out on the golf course. They don't take that much to do them, but just to know that I'm doing these things to help my game and perform better, that's confidence. What are you doing to get confidence? Well, if it's eating, that certainly can help. So we want oxygen in the brain, and we've got to get nutrition to the brain. So breathing and hydration, of course, and eating is very important.
Yeah, especially the hydration. I mean, the brain is 80-90% water. So there's a lot. That's a topic that attending a lot of fitness, even world fitness seminars with Titleist, or a lot of this topic, you can go talk about it for hours. But it is a really important topic because it's hard to monitor. I've even been with professionals that are trying to get on the golf course and monitor blood sugar levels and at different points, and they definitely have tied it to performance. There's a lot of this at the Olympic level. But what I would suggest, again, is, if you are journaling or you're taking notes, if you find something that works well for you, sometimes that takes some time we were working with a player that actually pretty advanced player, won the Arizona amateur, and he was allergic to, you also got to find out what you're allergic to. He was allergic to peanut butter. And ironically, you know, at the turn, Mom was always making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And front nine and back nine, he could feel. So if you do have to be careful of certain things. And sometimes people think, okay, I have an allergy, or if I eat a food, I'm going to have a certain reaction. It's not always a reaction, but it can create brain fog. I remember talking to a PGA Tour player about this extent. He's like, I get brain fog, and it was like, well, what are you putting in your body? Because that can, and the only way to really tell that is an actual food allergy test. And like I said, it's not one that you think of that you eat something and your face blows up and swells and whatnot. But you need to start journaling, and your breakfast is your most important meal. So journal, drink, stay hydrated, but after you find something that works and you feel comfortable you haven't overeaten, that might become your routine. I mean, that's the pattern I've seen on the tour. They don't really change things up much when it comes to what they eat on the golf course once they find something that works well for them, and then they sustain their energy. Just stay away from a lot of caffeine because you'll crash. No Diet Cokes. Okay. Great question, because that does, I mean, you wouldn't think that question is directly mental game related, but if it's causing brain fog, it definitely is. Okay, next. Can you comment on attention and intention during practice? I've been reading golf books, I assume maybe golf mental books, and they stress that it's important to simulate golf during practice, just not scrape and hit balls. Definitely a great question.
Yes, defining your intention is very critical because it will lay the groundwork for everything that you're going to do. And then you focus your attention accordingly to achieve your intention. So those two variables work for every game you play, every ball you hit, every tournament that you're in, etc. In terms of practice, I just want to comment that know what this set of balls is for. So we're back to intention and attention, but it doesn't mean that everyone has to be exactly the way you would do it in a game. Simulate golf practice during golf play during practice. There is time in practice when you're working on tempo. There is time in practice when you're working on something you just learn from your instructor or your coach. And so what you ask for then is what you're probably going to get. It doesn't mean the ball's going to fly for that set of 10 balls necessarily. It may or it may not, but that's where the intention and attention can help you. And what you are doing with attention in practice is figuring out where to focus your attention to get the intention that you want. In the system, everything is paired. So we think or we put an image in of a certain aspect of the swing, and it's paired to what motion comes out. We want to figure that out and be very clear about it. It doesn't mean that it's going to be exactly what you saw in the video, I can tell you that. What you see in the video is the motion that comes afterwards, and what we've got to go backwards and figure out is what thought created that motion, because thought precedes motion. So, yes, we don't want to just scrape and hit balls. We're probably going to waste a lot of time that way. We do want to practice in a way that is going to advance both our physical game and our mental game. So that's knowing what we're doing mentally while we practice. But I just like the idea mostly of compartmentalizing practice. So as long as you know what these 30 balls are for, what is your intention, and then you sit there and figure out how to focus your attention, you're going to be practicing in a way that's going to help you perform on that golf course. And then, of course, video is very good for this. You can think one thing, one swing cue, and go hit the ball with that and come back and look at what swing came out, because you're going to see what was paired in the system, and then go up and think a different swing cue or put a different image in and see which swing comes out. It's a great use of video. So, we are blending practice and play, but we're also very clear about what we're asking for. The other thing I encourage you strongly to put into your practice is stories and competitions, because that's going to help you tremendously to be able to take it to the golf course. It helps with the issue of transfer, and every shot you hit on the golf course has a story attached to it.
Great, great. I do have a question that is going to be asked verbally. Let me, Charles, if you're there, I'm going to unmute you. Charles, are you there? Okay. Charles, I can't hear you. I have my audio up. I don't know if you accidentally... there you are. Hi, Charles.
Hi. How are you, Debbie? Hello, Tim.
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. This is great. I would like to ask a question, and it has to do with getting back into your comfort zone. Would either of you have any thoughts or suggestions for someone who experiences anxiety, both when they're playing in front of others and for those, well, like myself, that are interested in teaching, a building of confidence in their presentation? Although there are situations that occur at different times, it's a trusting in our preparedness and ability, but are there any thoughts to steer yourself back into a more comfortable zone when you feel out of sorts?
That's a big question, Charles.
Yes, it is. And it,
okay.
It comes up. It's sort of a performance anxiety.
Right.
Okay, I think you're breaking up a little bit there, but we got the last part. There's a performance anxiety when.
Yes, a performance
okay, there you are.
anxiety. Yeah, you know.
Have you got it down to a certain? Do you know when it has a tendency to take place? Does it? Is it pre-round, post-round, during the round? Is it towards the end of your round, the beginning? Is there any correlation there?
During the teaching phase, it would be during an exam process. During a playing opportunity, it might be in front of friends that, wow, he puts a lot of time into practice. He must play well. Well, it's not necessarily the case sometimes. So sometimes a little performance anxiety of other people's expectations or test-taking situations.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. I know it's a complicated question, but...
Well, anxiety, you're right, Charles. Anxiety is very interesting. And okay, so there's two components to anxiety. There's the physiological response to where you're not comfortable, which is what you're telling me. And then there's the worry component that's going on in your head. For some players, the worry component is the highest one. It drives them crazy. And for other players, it could be, you know, that feeling in their gut that they're sick as can be. And some of them are actually, you know, throwing up and not eating before they go out to play. There are plenty of those players. So anxiety can be broken down a couple of different ways. We certainly want to address the one that's causing the most problems. So I kind of go back to the head more often, though, because you can do the breathing and the things that are going to help from a physical standpoint, and they can lessen or reduce the effect of it. But it's probably going to be more what's going on in the head. If we take the worry out, it's not anxiety anymore. It's simply activation, which is sitting there waiting for you to go out and play and perform with it. So it's the anxiety component, the worry component of what if I don't do well, that's probably causing the most discomfort. Now that's going to change relative to our, yes, you already said it, expectations. So we're going to throw the expectations out the window because they don't serve us. We're going to go back to what would you like to do. You've got all these people watching you right now. What would you like to do? I'd like to get this ball down the middle of the fairway, you know, looking like this, okay? If you know that's what you'd like to do, let's go back a step from there. How is it you're going to accomplish that? Well, I know I've got to make sure that I get the tension out because I'm nervous anyway before I swing. So I'm going to breathe in my routine and get all the air out, make sure my shoulders are down and not up. And then I'm going to make sure I hold my finish on that shot so at least if I miss a little bit, it won't be as bad. So I've got a plan and a strategy in there now to manage what started with a ton of anxiety and worry. Anxiety is usually caused by the unknown. We don't know what's coming. We don't know what swing's coming out. We don't know where the ball's going, etc. So the way we're managing that worry is we're putting knowns into our head. I know I can do this. I get behind the ball. I know I can start with my breath. I can think about what would I like to do not what I'm supposed to do, what I should do, I'm going to feel like an idiot if I don't do. But it's what would I like to do here? What's the plan? Okay, the plan's in place. Now let's walk up and put everything in place the best I can. You don't need to be comfortable over the ball. You might not be because of the situation. However, you still do your routine and you still breathe and you still hold your finish till the ball touches the ground. You've done everything you possibly can do that's part of your job, and where the ball goes, it goes. But there's a lot of what I would call comfort and confidence in going through this process, because the process is all, well, I can do that. I can go up and set my club. I can set my right foot. I can set my left foot. I can look at the top. All of those are knowns we're putting in. That's when we use the routine to help us out versus that fear of the unknown. So, Charles, I'm not sure if that helps some, but I'm glad you bring it up. Anxiety is a big one, but anxiety to me is in the head mostly, and so that's where we've got to go to manage it. And watching your self-talk is a big part of it.
Great, and Charles, we did get all your question. Sorry, I did have to mute you there because the audio was a little bit was coming through, but hopefully that answered your question. That's definitely probably could go pretty deep down the rabbit hole with that question, but everything that Debbie shared, I second. I think I just believe that you have your reality that you're trying to create has that. I always call it an emotional quotient. It has to be higher. That intention on what you want has to be higher than the actual fear itself, and that's hard to learn. And I don't know what you've done with breathing techniques and meditation, but there are a lot of things you might want to study and research on meditation, because I believe that could be very effective as well, because meditation, sitting there for 30 minutes, it's endurance. It's how can I stay in the present for 30 minutes? So, yeah, we use an attention game to keep your attention for long periods of time and to focus the things that are important to you. But try to sit with yourself you start with 5 minutes, and your mind races, and you have to quiet it down, and you've got to pretty much pull the mind out of the body, because every time you have a thought, it produces, like Debbie said, it's in your head, it's producing a chemical, and it's producing a response in your body. So now to talk to your body in a different way, that's why we'd say create an intention that is higher than anything else that you're putting your focus on. It sounds like your mind is not on the things that serve you best. So we've got we're almost at the top of the hour here, and I don't know if we're going to get to the last question. Maybe we can real quick. This was just if we had additional questions. Okay, we did get through them all, so that's great timing. I will share a couple things with you quickly that we're excited about in the month of April, right around Masters. We're going to be launching our new website, our new app. For those of you that have been playing the games in the iPad, they're now going to be on the iPhone. They're going to be on the Android phones, the Google Play. They'll be on the Android tablet. As you see here, we've broken the games up into different holes and different levels. And basically, and we also have a couple other features here. We have, can't see it really well, but over here on the iPad, you'll see we have daily training, we have freestyle, we can go in random, and you can address weakness. So again, if you're your weakest game is synchronicity, we'll give you a prescription for your address your weakness in synchronicity. If you establish a mental, we also have, there's a lot I'd like to cover here, but the Q handicap, we're establishing a Q handicap after you get a baseline and play a certain amount of holes of each game, and then we're going to give you a prescription in your daily training. So a lot of new features, and we have trophies that you can obtain at each level, and you really can't get to the next level until, our feeling is, until you get to a certain level in hole number 1, we're not going to move you to the next level. So it's, and here you can see at the bottom left, it's a little blurry, but you have a Q handicap. And the neat thing is you can share your scores and challenge your friends through social media. So here's a little bit, another snapshot of a leaderboard on where you place, and we also have a score that's going to be called the experience score. So you get rewarded for how much more you play, and then you have your Q handicap. And so some things that we're excited about. The Debbie's new book, The Science of Golf and Life, been very well received. She did with Dr. Candace Pert, and Dr. Joe Dispenza wrote the foreword. It's in our golf shop at ThinkGolf.com. It's also at CandacePert.com. In fact, I'm not 100% sure it's in our golf shop. Go to CandacePert.com. I don't believe it's in our golf shop. If you want to get a hard copy, you would want to contact us. Email us at thinkteam@thinksports.com. We'll get you a hard copy. Because right now, if you go to Candace Pert's, that would be an e-book. Dr. Joe Dispenza has a new book out. It's arriving April 29th. You Are the Placebo, Making Your Mind Matter. And based on some of Dr. Joe's previous books and bestsellers, great expectations with his next book. So thank you. The next webinar will be April 30th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you and have a great night.